You're listening to Informed America Radio, pushing back the frontiers of ignorance 24/7. Now, the Teri O'Brien Show.
May I have your attention, please?
Here we go. Y'all ready?
It's not about being right in the ideological sense of the word. It's about committing common sense every single day. It's politics, it's pop culture, and it's the news of the day, both serious stuff and the water cooler stuff. I've never seen such a bunch of petty, bitter, mean-spirited, vindictive people. And I'm really glad, Democrats, I'm really glad that all the serious problems in our country are solved now. And we can focus on being vindictive over this guy who's going to be ambassador to Belgium. That's like the most important problem we have facing our country right now. Way to go, Democrats. This is what I'm saying. My work is never done. We don't need to investigate the motive. As sad as this is, when you put on the red suspenders.
Put on a uniform.
Yeah, you put on the big shoes, you put on the white face and the red nose and the red makeup, the wig, that crazy looking wig, and you go out there and flop around with the big shoes. I'm sorry, I don't want to see anybody hurt, but I have to say, you're an intimidating and frightening presence in the community at that point. And some might say that without even knowing it, you're actually asking for it because you are dressed up as a clown. One thing we always say is the Second Amendment is not about hunting. The Second Amendment is about the right to keep and bear arms to prevent the government from becoming tyrannical. That's what it's about. It's not about being able to go out and shoot bunny rabbits.
Ooh, what a girl. She's always in a whirl.
Always going new places, seeing new faces. That girl on the go.
Teri O'Brien.
Wonderful girl on the go.
Frontrunner Firestorm. Ben Carson, now forced to explain himself.
Don't lie.
Amid accusations, his famous life story just doesn't add up. Dr. Carson is here, answering the tough questions.
Ah, yes, the tough questions for Dr. Ben Carson. Welcome to this November 8th, 2015 edition of the Teri O'Brien Show. Exactly 1 year away from Election Day, 2016. Welcome one, welcome all. If you are listening live, if it is 5 to 7 p.m. Eastern Time and it is a Sunday, then please pop over to TeriO'Brien.com, TeriObrien.com, and join us in the live and lively chat room. And please make it a point of visiting the site regularly because the show never ends there. And thanks to those of you who do that and who post comments on our blog posts, who spread them, retweet them, post them on Facebook, and also those of you who start your Amazon shopping at TeriO'Brien.com. That really helps us out because you get the same great service, selection, and prices, and we get a few pennies from Amazon for every transaction. So with holidays shopping coming up, I really hope you guys will take advantage of the opportunity to help us out. We really, really appreciate it. We wouldn't be here but for those of you who do that and who also contribute by dropping some money in the tip jar or subscribing to the show by making a monthly gift. So thanks so much for doing that. Ah, yes, the tough questions. The tough questions for Dr. Ben Carson, who apparently the media is really determined to do the Sarah Palin treatment on him. And it's alternately depressing and hilarious to watch them. As I watch some of these people interrogate Ben Carson, I get a little angry and disgusted because 99% of these people could not carry his jock intellectually. It reminds me of an episode, and this has got to be over 10 years ago, when the very intellectually stunted liberal fanatic Dick Eddie Haskell Durbin, senator from Illinois, was questioning the brilliant Judge Janice Rogers Brown in one of her confirmation hearings. And it was sad to see this brilliant woman have to sit there and be polite and endure the questioning from someone who so far beneath her, both in terms of accomplishments, intellect, and frankly, integrity. And same situation going on here. But they're in full Palin mode, going after Ben Carson. And we'll hear some more of the audio involving these controversies. Oh, the tremendous controversies. I saw a guy on C-SPAN this morning, some media weasel who has written some idiotic book that no one's going to want to read about presidential elections in 2008 and 2012, claiming that there's absolutely no media bias whatsoever, that Ben Carson doesn't know what he's talking about. And yet, Barack Obama, who this guy claims has been thoroughly vetted, claimed until 2007 that he was born in Kenya. Remember that? When he was trying to cultivate this image of this mysterious, exotic, international citizen to promote his book, until 2007, his publisher said he was born in Kenya. And then they just said, oh, never mind. And it was all fine. Hillary Clinton claimed she was under sniper fire when she went to Bosnia in 1996. And that was a lie. And that's just fine. Bill Clinton was accused of rape, a credible assertion of rape. And there was very little curiosity and remains very little curiosity about that. And even more significantly, when we speak about Barack Obama, what is worse, Dr. Ben Carson, who didn't lie about anything, by the way, he was correct when he described the West Point offer of a free ride as a scholarship. It turns out that's what the school itself calls it on its website. And it's amazing that Politico couldn't find that, and these other crusading seekers of truth in our media couldn't find that out when other people spent about 30 seconds on a computer and they found it. But okay, so that was not untrue. Dr. Ben Carson has just revealed in the Washington Examiner is reporting on another so-called controversy. The fact that, well, let me play a little bit from this morning's This Week on ABC, and we'll hear Jonathan Karl talk about the controversy, and I'll tell you the latest information on it, and you won't be surprised to learn that, once again, the media doesn't have...
Ladies and gentlemen, Donald Trump.
Live from New York, Donald Trump took center stage on Saturday night.
Donald!
Enrique!
I brought you the check for the wall.
Oh, that's so wonderful.
But on Friday night, it was Trump's chief rival in the polls, Ben Carson, who put on a show.
What a bunch of garbage. Where's the exaggeration? That is the most lame investigation I have ever seen.
The usually serene Carson is lashing out after accusations that parts of his life story don't add up.
They have been talking to everybody I've ever known, everybody I've ever seen. There's got to be a scandal. There's got to be some nurse he's having an affair with. There's got to be something. They are getting desperate.
The latest questions raised by the Wall Street Journal center on a story Carson tells in his 1990 autobiography, Gifted Hands, that when he was a student at Yale, he was the only one out of 150 students who didn't fall for a professor's hoax in a class called Perceptions 301. and was then named the most honest student in class, his photo taken by the Yale Daily News. But Yale tells the Wall Street Journal there was no class by that name and no such photo in the Yale newspaper archives. When asked about the Wall Street Journal report, Carson's campaign said there are no allegations, and he probably doesn't remember the name of the class.
Doesn't remember? How dare he not remember something that happened 40 years ago? Jonathan Karl of ABC News from this morning's This Week with George Stephanopoulos here on the Teri O'Brien Show. And in fact, the name of the class is Perception, and the Carson campaign has released, and the Washington Examiner is reporting on this, and they've got a link here to the syllabus for the class, Perception. Now, this syllabus is from spring of 2002. So I'm sure the media is going to come back and say that when Ben Carson says, allow me to do the research for the Wall Street Journal reporter, here is a syllabus for the class you claim never existed, still waiting on the apology, I'm sure they're going to come back and say, this isn't from when you attended Yale, doctor. Oh, and by the way, we don't have the least bit of interest in anything to do with Barack Obama's biography. It's really interesting to me that they claim that Dr. Carson may have distorted or mischaracterized, embellished, whatever words they want to use, his background. When it comes to Barack Obama, he didn't do any of that stuff. When Bill Ayers took that box of garbled notes, that semi-literate mess that Barack Obama handed him and made it into a book, that was an accurate representation of his background, his beliefs, and what's in there should disqualify him. That should have disqualified him from holding any serious office. The fact that he admitted his hostility toward the Constitution, toward free enterprise, all the things that are in this book is all of his radical associations, including the aforementioned Mr. Ayers, who many of us believe did write that book. And that's another issue about which there's zero curiosity. But okay, so this question about a class at Yale, 40 years ago? What is a bigger misrepresentation, mischaracterization, that or Barack Obama claiming back in 2011 that he never knew his illegal alien uncle, Obongo? Remember that? Remember when Uncle Obongo got arrested for drunk driving and the White House said, they've never met. And then they had to backpedal and they had to say, oh, wait, they did meet. And Barack Obama stayed with Uncle Obongo in Cambridge for a few weeks when he was in law school. So, okay, did he forget that salient fact? Was he lying about it? We don't know. But one thing we do know is we didn't have 4 or 5 day media wall-to-wall coverage on whether or not it was true or not and whether he was lying about it. And that's just one example. I mean, if we even start getting into Hillary Clinton, well, let's hear the rest of the Jonathan Karl report, especially now pay particular attention to the very end.
Carson has also faced questions about his claim he was offered a scholarship to West Point and about whether he was violent when he was young, a story he often tells on the campaign trail.
At age 14, another teenager angered me and I had a large camping knife. And I tried to stab him in the abdomen.
Carson isn't naming that other teenager, now saying it was a relative. But he says that's when he rejected anger and gave his life to God. Right. Donald Trump isn't buying the transformation.
Temperament. Do you think that's the right temperament to be president? I don't think so.
But where Trump senses vulnerability, Carson sees just the opposite.
My prediction is that all of you guys trying to pile on is actually going to help me.
And he may just enjoy the last laugh. Carson's campaign says it's raised $3.5 million this week, thanks to the so-called biased media. For This Week, Jonathan Karl, ABC News, Washington.
From this morning's edition of This Week with George Stephanopoulos on ABC News here on the Teri O'Brien Show. So-called media bias? Seriously? I resent even having to spend any time on this, but it's important to discuss this because it is a real problem in our society. And it's really the reason we are where we are today in terms of having a Marxist sitting in the White House. So let's hear a little bit of Dr. Carson being interrogated by these various outlets. We'll get to George Stephanopoulos in a minute, but I want you to take a listen to Chris Jansing of NBC News from this morning's edition of Meet the Press. The first clip we're going to hear is the one in which Chris thinks it's really unreasonable that Dr. Carson doesn't expect to be vetted.
Vetting is a normal part of the process. Did you not expect this?
I have always said that I expect to be vetted. But being vetted and what is going on with me, you said this 30 years ago, you said this 20 years ago, this didn't exist, this didn't, I have not seen that with anyone else. If you can show me where that's happened with someone else, I will take that statement back.
I think almost every person who has been president
not like this. I have never seen this before. And many other people who are politically experienced tell me they've never seen it before either.
You don't think that Bill Clinton or the president with his birth certificate, people who still refuse to believe?
Not even close.
Oh, bitch, please.
Chris Jansing of NBC News from this morning's Meet the Press here on the Teri O'Brien Show. Bill Clinton, that's kind of ironic. It was Lisa Myers of NBC News. She was the only one who actually talked to Juanita Broderick, who did make what many believe is a very credible claim of sexual assault, of rape, of forcible rape against Bill Clinton. She was the only one. Lisa Myers was the only one. If there's others out there, let me know, and I'll take that back. But I don't think that's true. So Chris Jansing claiming that Bill Clinton faced tough questions, and we're going to get into Hillary and the tough questions in a minute. But Barack Obama and the birth certificate, well, excuse me, but Obama and his publisher, they were the ones who were running around, as I said earlier, until 2007, claiming that he was born in Kenya because they wanted to cultivate this exotic, international man of mystery image. And then it was like, never mind. And people wonder, like people like Chris Jansing, wonder why some of us wanted to see his birth certificate. Well, he said he was born in Kenya, Chris. Okay, so that wasn't it, though. She pursued Dr. Carson. She wanted to know, okay, you say you're being subjected to this unfair and uniquely challenging scrutiny. Why you?
So what do you think is going on? Why you?
Because I'm a threat.
To
the progressive, the secular progressive movement in this country. I'm a very big threat because, they can look at the polling data and they can see that, I'm the candidate who's most likely to be able to beat Hillary Clinton. They see that.
Dr. Ben Carson from this morning's Meet the Press on NBC here on the Teri O'Brien Show. I think that what he says there has a lot of merit. I think that they do fear conservative minorities in the Democrat Party. I think that is why there's always been such a just relentless, fierce assault on these people, whether it be Clarence Thomas, whether it be Janice Rogers Brown, who I mentioned earlier, whether it be Herman Cain. It doesn't matter who it is. If any black person has the effrontery to step out of line and try to get off the plantation, the Democrats do not like it. And they go after that person fiercely and ruthlessly. And that's what they're doing to Dr. Ben Carson. But I think that it's true that it is backfiring, because I think everybody is seeing the obvious, which is that it is unfair and that he is getting the Sarah Palin treatment. And I think that obviously it is accruing to his campaign's financial benefit, which is a great thing. So that's a good thing. Now, George Stephanopoulos did talk to Ben Carson by phone, and in typical George fashion, said some things that make no sense. And of course, here's the other ridiculous part of this whole charade. We're watching an obvious Clinton operative, somebody who only has the career he has because he is a veteran of the Clinton 1992 campaign. And as a result of that, now he is supposedly a journalist, so-called, and he's questioning someone who's running against someone who is responsible for him having any career at all. I mean, the whole thing is a ridiculous charade. In any rational universe, it would just be laughed off as ridiculous. And we do here. And I know you guys think it's ridiculous as well. But let's listen to a little bit of the questioning by the journalist, George Stephanopoulos, of Dr. Ben Carson. First, on that whole question of the scholarship.
Now, there have been a series of questions about the stories you've told about your past. And as you pointed out, you've had explanations for many of them. But there are other cases where they don't match either the public record or the memories of others involved. Is this really all the media's fault, or do you think concede at least?
Like what? Give me an example of what you're talking about.
Well, for example, when you started out talking about a scholarship to West Point, there are no scholarships to West Point. You went on to clarify the actual situation.
Wait a minute, George. Now, go look on the West Point website, and you'll see those specific words, scholarship, full scholarship to West Point. So even though it is, given as a grant for anybody who gets in, those words are used. And if a recruiter or somebody who's trying to get you to come there was trying to get you to do that, those are the words that they would use. It's on their very website. So don't say that was a lie.
So I actually didn't call it a lie. I said where it didn't match the public record or the precise memories of others.
You are stuck on stupid.
Clinton operative and journalist George Stephanopoulos from this morning's edition of This Week here on the Teri O'Brien Show. So it doesn't match the precise memories of others? What the hell does that mean? He says there's no such thing as a scholarship to West Point. George said that. And then he said, I'm not saying you're lying. I'm just saying it doesn't comport with the precise memories of others. What the hell does that mean, George? That is doublespeak in the service of Hillary Clinton, in my opinion. But it makes no sense, so I don't think it's really helping your girl that much. Okay, so, but he wasn't finished, of course.
So that's my question. Do you believe that you will have to get a little more precise in your documenting of your past?
Well, show me somebody, even from your business, the media, who is 100% accurate in everything that they say that happened 40 or 50 years ago. Please show me that person, because I will sit at their knee and I will learn from them.
So going forward, no changes in your campaign?
Absolutely not. Our campaign is the same. We tell the truth. We deal with the issues. And, I'm not a politician. So, you're not going to find me acting like a politician. I don't do that. I am somebody who is extremely concerned about the direction of our nation and what is going to happen to us if we continue down this pathway. And I am very hopeful that the people in your business, the media, will soon recognize the role that they play in helping to restore the American dream.
Dr. Ben Carson from this morning's edition of This Week on ABC News here on the Teri O'Brien Show. Don't hold your breath, Dr. Carson, for the media to come around to see that they have a role in helping preserve the American dream, because as we've seen, their goal is to help destroy America, or should we say remake America. They have spent the last 7 years in the service of Barack Obama's complete and absolute destruction of this country, which is something I want to talk about after the break. And that specifically is that under the radar, while everybody is talking in the media about foolishness from 40 years ago in Dr. Ben Carson's so-called checkered past, the non-scandal in which he never lied about anything, and even these hacks over at Politico had to withdraw what they said originally. While the media is obsessed with that, we have a horrific illegal alien crime spree in this country. I have 2 stories just from the last couple of days involving these so-called unaccompanied children from El Salvador wreaking havoc in our country. So I want to talk about Barack Obama and his three favored groups: illegals, so-called refugees, and felons. That's who he puts at the top of the list. The hardworking, tax-paying citizens of this country are on his excrement list, as they always have been. Also, I've got a story here from Stars and Stripes about closing Gitmo. Apparently, that's going to be coming up next week. And a little bit of Second Amendment talk. Hillary Clinton talking about guns. Oh, my God. You can't make it up. So I'll be right back.
Be sure to follow us on Twitter. The address is @TerryO'Brien. TerrIOBRIEN. That's OBRIEN, spelled just like Terry's cousin, Conan. Thanks for your encouragement and support.
Where do you want to go to lunch? I'm having a stroke. Did you hear what I said? I'm having a stroke. Why aren't you answering me? I'm having a stroke.
What's up with your face?
I'm having a stroke.
That's not normal. Is something wrong?
I'm having a stroke.
Are you having an allergic reaction?
I'm having a stroke.
When someone is having a stroke, they may not be able to say it with words, but their body language will tell you loud and clear.
I'm having a stroke.
You just need to know the sudden signs. Look for FAST, F-A-S-T. F, face drooping. A, arm weakness. Or S, speech difficulty. Then T, time. Time to call 911 immediately, because the sooner they get to the hospital, the sooner they'll get treatment. And that can make a remarkable difference in their recovery. Know the sudden signs: face, arm, speech, time. Spot a stroke fast. Visit strokeassociation.org. Brought to you by the American Stroke Association and the Ad Council.
So now we declare war on poverty, or you too can be a Bobby Baker. Now, do they honestly expect us to believe that if we add $1 billion to the $45 billion we're spending, one more program to the 30-odd we have, and remember, this new program doesn't replace any, it just duplicates existing programs, do they believe that poverty is suddenly going to disappear by magic? Well, in all fairness, I should explain there is one part of the new program that isn't duplicated. This is the youth feature. We're now going to solve the dropout problem, juvenile delinquency, by reinstituting something like the old CCC camps. And we're going to put our young people in these camps. But again, we do some arithmetic, and we find that we're going to spend each year, just on room and board for each young person we help, $4,700 a year. We can send them to Harvard for $2,700. Of course, don't get me wrong. I'm not suggesting Harvard is the answer to juvenile delinquency. But seriously, what are we doing to those we seek to help? Not too long ago, a judge called me here in Los Angeles. He told me of a young woman who'd come before him for a divorce. She had 6 children, was pregnant with her 7th. Under his questioning, she revealed her husband was a laborer earning $250 a month. She wanted the divorce to get an $80 raise. She's eligible for $330 a month in the Aid to Dependent Children program. She got the idea from 2 women in her neighborhood who'd already done that very thing. Yet any time you and I question the schemes of the do-gooders, we're denounced as being against their humanitarian goals. They say we're always against things, we're never for anything. Well, the trouble with our liberal friends is not that they're ignorant. It's just that they know so much that isn't so. Now,
This week's episode, Rattlesnake at the Pond.
Oh, Johnny, skipping rocks at the pond sure is fun. Hey, look, a moving stick. That ain't a stick. That's a rattlesnake. Sassy, we're in danger. Good idea, Sassy. Go get Mr. Gunderson. You will in a second, but first you'd like to tell us something we may not know about animal shelters in the United States? It's getting close, Sassy. Approximately 8 million pets enter shelters each year? The majority of which are in shelters because of owner-related issues that the animals have no control over? Sassy the rattlesnake! Save us, Sassy! What, Sassy? You wish you were videotaping this? Sassy!
Sassy is brought to you by the Ad Council and the ShelterPetProject.org. Remember, adopt.
Broadcasting from a secured bunker in an undisclosed location in flyover country, outside the East Coast bubble and far from left coast insanity. You're listening to America's original warrior princess, Teri O'Brien. Learn more at TeriO'Brien.com.
People sleep peaceably in their beds at night only because rough men stand ready to do violence on their behalf. George Orwell. You're listening to Informed America Radio.
Ready for more hot girl on government action? The Teri O'Brien Show.
Yes! 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 Yes!
Live in vivid red, white, and blue. Every Sunday, 4 to 6 p.m. Central Time. Or on demand, anytime, at TeriO'Brien.com.
You think you're this terrific person. You think you're this, you think you're that, and you're being very naive, and quite frankly, you're fired.
They're great. They don't have my talent, my money, or especially my good looks. But you know what? They're not bad. And we're going to have a lot of fun tonight.
You're a racist!
Who the hell is I knew this was going to happen. Who is that?
Trump's a racist!
It's Larry David. What are you doing, Larry?
I heard if I yelled that, they'd give me $5,000.
As a businessman, I can fully respect that. That's okay. We have got a great show tonight. Sia is here, so stick around. We'll be right back.
As you all know, Donald Trump hosted Saturday Night Live last night, and that was him here on this November 8th, 2015 edition of the Teri O'Brien Show, just 1 year away from Election Day 2016. And you no doubt heard about that, what was referred to there, what you heard, Larry David yelling out, Trump is a racist. And if you didn't hear about it, there's a group called Deport Racism, and they're the ones that did that charming ad featuring the tween youngsters dropping F-bombs. And, you know, you can't get enough of that, right? So they had that charming little ad, and they said that they would give $5,000 to anybody who yelled Trump is a racist. And apparently they're saying they're going to give that money to Larry David. So I guess they're sleazeballs, but they're sleazeballs who keep their word. And I say they're sleazeballs because if you've seen this ad with these children dropping F-bombs, it's really despicable. In any case, you know, the show is amusing, but SNL, I think it's gone downhill a lot in the last few years. And the whole trend of political figures going on entertainment shows, it's nothing new, right? Richard Nixon did it. John Kennedy did it. I mean, it's not anything new. People act like, oh, this has not happened before. But I'm not sure that it's necessarily the best way to get an informed, intelligent electorate, which is our goal here. But speaking of that, as people are watching SNL and, you know, the soap opera about Ben Carson, meanwhile, we actually have our country being destroyed right before our very eyes. And I mentioned before the break, Barack Obama's favored groups are, of course, illegal aliens. I put them right at the top of the list. These so-called refugees, especially the Muslims, so 97% of the Syrian refugees that they want to let into the country are Muslim. And, of course, the felons, especially the so-called nonviolent drug felons that he has begun releasing into American cities. But first, let's talk a little bit about the illegal aliens. The first story is a Washington Times story. The headline, Virginia high school student was killed on orders from gang leaders in El Salvador. And this is from Thursday. A story by Andrea Noble. A 17-year-old MS-13 gang member known as, quote, the enforcer, unquote, of Sterling, Virginia, shot and killed a high school student on orders handed down from gang leaders in El Salvador because the boy had left the gang and joined a rival group, according to testimony given Thursday by law enforcement officials. The testimony was given during a preliminary hearing in Loudoun County for two illegal Salvadoran immigrants accused of stashing the gun used in the September killing. It sheds new light on the motivation for a homicide that has elicited outrage from a U.S. senator. The juvenile charged with first-degree murder in the death of 17-year-old Danny Centeno Miranda has not been publicly named because he has not been charged as an adult. But in Thursday's court hearing, a detective with the Loudoun County Sheriff's Office offered a myriad of nicknames for the boy, referring to him by initials JME and by street nicknames that included, quote, the Mexican, unquote, and the, quote, enforcer of Sterling, unquote. The boy's case is expected to go before a Loudoun County grand jury soon, and if he is indicted, officials will identify him. In court Thursday, investigators were hoping to prove that prosecutors had enough probable cause to charge stepbrothers Henry Ernesto Dominguez Vasquez, 20, and Juan Moises Aguirre Zelaya, 18, with firearm possession by an unlawful alien and an accessory after the fact to homicide. Well, first of all, you can't call him an unlawful alien. Didn't these guys see that alien Bill of Rights the other day that they came out with? Yeah, you guys probably heard about that. Some group came out with an alien Bill of Rights, and you can't call them illegal aliens. The term that you're supposed to use now is undocumented Americans. I'm not making it up. That's okay. So they accuse these two of stashing the gun, which they found inside their house, inside the freezer. So back to this young victim, this Virginia high school student, Centeno Miranda, reportedly had left his home in El Salvador to escape violence there and was living with relatives in Sterling. It was unclear whether he was involved in any gang activity, either in El Salvador or Virginia. But JME, that's a 17-year-old alleged killer, believed that Centeno Miranda had been an MS-13 member in his native country and had left the gang when he arrived in the U.S. for membership in the rival 18th Street gang, according to Detective Rodriguez. So the Border Patrol was involved here because during the Thursday hearing, a Department of Homeland Security official also confirmed that both Mr. Dominguez Vasquez and Mr. Aguirre Zelaya were in the country illegally. Of course they were. Both had prior contact with U.S. Border Patrol and were assigned immigration court hearings that they failed to attend. Ding, ding, ding. Where's my bell? So the senator mentioned earlier is Senator Chuck Grassley. He says that all three of these people involved in this killing entered the country as unaccompanied alien children in 2013 and missed immigration hearings scheduled about a month before the killing occurred. So, as he says, had these suspects appeared for their mandatory court date, they would have likely not had the opportunity to murder a 17-year-old high school student from Loudoun County. And of course, naturally, that is true. We're being told that these unaccompanied children, they're dreamers. They're here out of love. Apparently not all of them. And apparently, just like in the case of Kate Steinle in San Francisco, some of them are committing murder in this country, and they're not being deported. But of course, the feds have admitted that they have lost track of them. Here's a story from the Daily Caller. This is from, let's see, November 5th. So what day would that be? That would be Thursday also. By Chuck Ross. Feds having trouble keeping track of older unaccompanied alien children. The federal government is losing track of, quote, a good number, unquote, of older unaccompanied alien children who came to the U.S. in recent years from Central America during an unprecedented border surge, according to a nonprofit group that provides services to immigrants and refugees. So this is the Migration Policy Institute. And they say nearly 78,000 unaccompanied minors, mostly from Central America, have been released here since October 1st, 2014. And apparently, the older ones, and certainly the ones more likely to be involved in criminal activity, the ones like described in that previous story, are the ones that they're not keeping track of, and they can't keep track of. Okay, so this group says 78,000 unaccompanied minors have been released. I'm also looking at this Breitbart story from the day before that says more than 81,000 unaccompanied minors have been released to sponsors inside the U.S. over the last 2 years. So we don't really know how many have been released, but we do know that some of them are committing violent crimes. And I guess I ask, when are people going to wake up? Does your loved one have to be killed or the victim of a violent crime before people wake up and see what is going on? Now I've got another story. I'm not done. There's more. Wait, there's more. I'm like Ron Popeil. This is a Washington Times story about a guy, 18-year-old Jose Misael Reyes. Let's hear what more about him. This is from Friday, story by Stephen Dinan. An illegal immigrant, MS-13 gang member the Obama administration had released on bond, committed an unprovoked act on a sheriff's deputy, slugging the deputy as he worked on a traffic report while sitting in his car, the Frederick County, Maryland Sheriff's Department said Friday. Jose Misael Reyes, 18, had been arrested in May on weapons charges and in June on charges of malicious destruction of property, but federal immigration authorities had left him free on bond while he awaited a deportation hearing, the sheriff's office said. Now, why is there no outrage about this? And why isn't the media reporting on this illegal immigrant crime spree in this country? And the fact that despite claims by federal authorities that the people that are being allowed to stay in the country are just hardworking, they want to do the jobs no one else will do, and that just is not true. So let's continue from this Stephen Dinan story from the Washington Times. Given his age, Mr. Reyes was potentially part of the recent surge of illegal immigrant children that overwhelmed the Border Patrol over the last few years and who've been shipped to communities across this country. Mr. Reyes came upon Deputy First Class Greg Morton Thursday morning as the deputy was in his marked police vehicle, finishing up an accident report. The sheriff's office said Mr. Reyes began banging on the back window of the vehicle, and when Deputy Morton turned to look at the man, the man reached through the half-open window and slugged the deputy in the face. After Deputy Morton got Mr. Reyes under control and handcuffed him, the man tried to escape, kicking the deputy again, the sheriff's office said. Mr. Reyes is a, quote, validated MS-13 gang member, unquote, the sheriff's office said in a statement. MS-13, or Mara Salvatrucha, 13, is an international gang started by Salvadorans in Los Angeles in the 1980s. Did you know that? Actually started in Los Angeles. It expanded operations to Central America after many of its leaders were deported. and has since spread across the U.S., including a particular presence in Maryland, Virginia, and Washington, D.C., which has been the destination for many Central American immigrants. It's unclear why Mr. Reyes was out on bond, given the priority Homeland Security officials say they place on going after illegal immigrant gang members. Well, that's what they say, but that's not what they do. And as always, we have to not watch what they say. We have to watch what they do. And this case, as pointed out in this article, it's really troubling because Frederick County, Maryland, had signed an agreement with ICE to enforce immigration laws under what used to be called the 287G program. But, as it points out here, the Obama administration has curtailed use of that program in response to criticism from illegal immigrant advocacy groups. So we have violent, illegal aliens committing murder, attacking police officers, and apparently it's perfectly fine with Barack Obama's administration and Department of Homeland Security. Now, a couple of other disturbing cases involving illegal aliens, and their so-called ethnic profiling by police. So, this whole favoring of illegal aliens and felons and so-called refugees goes hand in hand with the Obama regime's war on law enforcement, doesn't it? And of course, the Obama regime denies that there's any chilling effect on the part of police officers, that police officers have any concern about actually doing their jobs because they will be given the Darren Wilson treatment, the officer in the Ferguson, Missouri case involving the 18-year-old 300-pound thug who first robbed a store, attacked a clerk, and then tried to take Officer Wilson's gun and was lionized and still being lionized by imbeciles like Quentin Tarantino and anybody else involved in and supportive of the so-called Black Lives Matter movement. And that would include Barack Obama. So, the Obama regime says, don't be silly. The police don't have any concern about doing their job. And that's patently ridiculous. But let's take a look at a couple of cases, two others. So we heard two cases within a couple of days, or two stories within a couple of days about MS-13 committing murder and mayhem in Maryland and Virginia. Now, let's talk about two cases, one in which the Department of Homeland Security accused local police department of racial profiling for arresting two previously deported illegals and turning them over to federal authorities. So just let that sink in for a second. First of all, two previously deported illegals. So once you've been deported, if you come back into the country, you are committing a felony at that point. And yet the federal government, the same federal government that sued the state of Arizona for trying to enforce immigration laws, is now going after a local police department for racial profiling because they arrested these two previously deported illegals. And this is the town of New Llano, Louisiana. It's a very small town of only 2,500 people near the Texas border. And apparently, the police saw two guys standing outside a motel and asked for ID. And the two guys, Jose Adan Fugan Cano and Gustavo Barahona Sanchez, could not produce valid ID. And so the officers detained them. And it turns out that, as I've said before, they're both illegals. They'd been previously deported. And so New Llano police officers turned them over to ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, and both of them were eventually sent back to Honduras. Then a local immigrant advocacy group, I call those the enemy within, filed a civil rights complaint on behalf of these guys. And the Department of Homeland Security, the umbrella agency that oversees ICE, launched an investigation. The director of the Department of Homeland Security's Office for Civil Rights and Civil Liberties, Megan Mack, determined that the illegal aliens had been ethnically profiled by police and should not be removed from the country. In an email to ICE Director Sarah Saldana, Mack writes that, quote, CRCL, Civil Rights and Civil Liberties, has significant concerns with the actions of local law enforcement in this matter, unquote. She also writes that, quote, it seems clear that the arrest was based on their ethnicity and the way they were awaiting pickup for a job, unquote, and orders ICE to release both men from custody and seek closure of the removal actions. So just let that sink in. And of course, the police department says it had nothing to do with that. It said that this motel parking lot was a place where there was a lot of criminal activity, and that's why they were there to figure out what's going on. Now, the second case is involving a public school district in South Florida. And at this district, they require people to verify that they're in the country legally before they're hired. And I pretty much thought that was pretty much the law. Do you guys all remember when you get jobs, you have to fill out what's called an I-9 form? And that's something that came into being back in 1986 when we had that Reagan amnesty that he forever regretted after that. So when you go get a job at virtually, any large corporation, you have to fill out that form. Well, apparently at this school district in South Florida, you have to prove you're in the country legally. But according to the Obama regime, that's illegal. And that discriminates against employees in violation of the Immigration and Nationality Act. So the Department of Justice sicked their Civil Rights Division, which of course has exploded dramatically under the Obama regime because, the Obama regime views its role to go out and remake America, as in persecute anybody who doesn't go along with their view that America is an imperialistic, racist place that deserves payback. And part of that is going to be by virtue of bringing actions like this. And so the Department of Justice's Civil Rights Division went after the Miami-Dade County Public Schools for discrimination and actually essentially forced it to stop checking to see if employees are authorized to work in the U.S. I'm not making any of this up. So I will put a link to these articles in the show notes so that you guys can see for yourself how this war on law enforcement is dovetailing with this whole illegal alien crime spree. And just to have closure on this thing about the Miami-Dade schools, they have to pay a $90,000 civil penalty and establish a $125,000 fund to compensate individuals who lost wages because the district checked their immigration status. Agreement also forces the district to undergo, quote, compliance monitoring, unquote, for 3 years and allow the Department of Justice's Office of Special Counsel for Immigration-Related Unfair Employment Practices to train students, quote, on workers' rights, unquote. I am not making any of this up. Welcome to Barack Obama's Remade America. I'll ask you guys out there in the audience who voted for Barack Obama, or if you know anybody who did, is this what you voted for? Because you should have known this is what you were voting for. It was clear, even when he was in the state legislature, that this is who he was and who he is. Okay, coming up on the other side, let's talk a little bit about these so-called nonviolent felons. and a story out of Chicago that really explains a lot about the gun violence in that community. Also, I mentioned closing Gitmo. And what else do I have here in the pile? Oh, yes, Hillary Clinton and her nonsensical comments on guns. And we also have, I mentioned Gitmo. We have a debate coming up on Tuesday night, another GOP debate. This one's going to be on Fox Business. I'll tell you a little bit more about that. And I have other stuff in the pile here, but I'm having a brain cramp. But I will go into the break. I will regroup. And when I come back, I promise even more information that will help you be the most informed citizen you can possibly be. That's our goal here on the Teri O'Brien Show. Thanks so much for joining me. I, of course, as always, will be right back.
This is Andy McCarthy, and you're listening to the Teri O'Brien Show.
I know you're watching, so pay attention. You hate my freedom, my religion, and my country. You hate me for speaking my mind. You try to control me with violence and intimidation. You think you can muzzle me with fear? Don't ever confuse me for my politicians or my media. I am an American, free-born and free-bred, and I will call you out for who you are. An Islamic extremist who would kill me for my beliefs. You don't intimidate me. My freedom is more powerful than anything you can possibly do, and I will never, never surrender my rights to your terror. I will say what I think, worship according to my beliefs, and raise my children how I see fit. And I defend it all with the Second Amendment to the Constitution of the United States. I cower to no one, because I am the National Rifle Association of America, and I am freedom's safest place.
Sassy! Sassy!
This week's episode, Rattlesnake at the Pond.
Oh, Johnny, skipping rocks at the pond sure is fun. Hey, look! A moving stick! That ain't a stick! That's a rattlesnake! Sassy! We're in danger! Good idea, Sassy! Go get Mr. Gunderson! You will in a second, but first you'd like to tell us something we may not know about animal shelters in the United States? It's getting close, Sassy! Approximately 8 million pets enter shelters each year? The majority of which are in shelters because of owner-related issues that the animals have no control over? Sassy the rattlesnake! Save us, Sassy! What, Sassy? You wish you were videotaping this? Sassy!
Sassy is brought to you by the Ad Council and the ShelterPetProject.org. Remember, adopt.
Can you tell if these vegetables are being contaminated with bacteria that could cause paralysis? Listen. Can't, can you? You can't see it either. Use different cutting boards so that the bacteria in raw meats and seafood and their juices doesn't touch prep surfaces for other foods, like veggies. Raw food may contain bacteria that can make you very sick, or worse. 1 in 6 Americans will get sick from food poisoning this year, and roughly 3,000 will die. But you can keep your family safer by separating raw meats and seafood from other foods. Learn more about this and other important information. Check your steps at foodsafety.gov. That's foodsafety.gov. A public service announcement brought to you by the U.S. Department of Agriculture, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and the Ad Council.
From a review of the ABCs of Barack Obama, Understanding God's Greatest Gift to America by Teri O'Brien. An obvious admirer writes, right-wing tripe with fraudulent title by Obama haters. Tries too hard and fails so miserably at political social satire. The thing is, you have to be funny and kind of smart to pull that kind of thing off. And this author wouldn't know smart or funny if she tripped over them. I have many issues with the Obama presidency, but this totally worthless propaganda is for Fox News morons only. I only wish I could have awarded this 0 stars, or more accurately, -5 stars. This is easily the biggest waste of time I have ever been tricked into reading, and wish that anyone associated with this would grow up and realize that Obama was elected president twice by a majority of Americans despite the tons of money that people like the environmental assassins, the Koch brothers, threw into his opposition. Get over it. Another reviewer writes, "This book was great fun to read and was especially valuable for the links to news reports on each of the topics covered. The fun part stops when you realize what a cumulative disaster Obama's term in office has been, much of it documented in this book. What say you? Get your copy of the ABCs of Barack Obama, Understanding God's Greatest Gift to America on Amazon.com today for the amazing price of only 99 cents and let us know what you think."
We just want to say that we're not spirit bunnies anymore. We always hated that name. It bugged the heck out of Dina and me. It's just such a put down. Really. We know you've got a lot of spirit, everybody, right? And we're going to destroy Lincoln next week, all right? You know, it takes a lot of courage to get up here and do something that you know people will make fun of.
Ooh, what a girl. She's always in a whirl. Always going new places, seeing new faces. That girl on the go.
Teri O'Brien.
Wonderful girl on the go.
That's right. It's me. It's me. I'm back for the second big hour of this November 8th, 2015 edition of the Teri O'Brien Show. Thanks so much for joining me today on this beautiful autumn day. And just to have closure on the topic of the illegals that we were discussing in the previous hour, I did want to mention this report from the Liberty Alliance using information obtained from FAIR, the Federation for American Immigration Reform. And the headline is, "Illegals cost U.S. taxpayers over $90 billion per year." This is from November 3rd. So what is that? Last Tuesday. And there's a graphic here that shows by state the number of illegals and the cost per year. This is based on 2009 figures that indicate that there were approximately 12,220,000 illegals in the U.S. The cost per state is based upon 2010 figures indicating the total cost to U.S. taxpayers was approximately $83,778 million as of 5 years ago. So, and they write here, consider the fact that the yearly cost to Ohio taxpayers in 2012 jumped from $563 million per year to $879 million per year. That's an increase of $316 million, or 56% in just 2 years. Can you say unsustainable? Can you say Cloward Piven? And if you don't know what I refer to there, you can look in the show notes. I'll put some information there, but basically a theory by two Columbia professors from the late 60s, early 70s, describing a way to destroy our society by overwhelming the welfare system and bringing about chaos. Something that I think Barack Obama admires very much. And as we let that sink in about the amount, the over $92 billion the illegals are costing, looking at this story from The Hill from yesterday, the former U.S. Comptroller General says the real U.S. debt is closer to about $65 trillion than the off-cited figure of $18 trillion. Dave Walker, who headed the GAO under Presidents Bill Clinton and George W. Bush, said, when you add up all the nation's unfunded liabilities, the national debt is more than 3 times the number generally advertised. Quote, if you end up adding to that 18.5 trillion the unfunded civilian and military pensions and retiree health care, the additional underfunding for Social Security, the additional underfunding for Medicare, various commitments and contingencies that the federal government has, the real number is about $65 trillion rather than $18 trillion. And that's growing automatically absent reforms. And so when you think about this issue, and if you know people who are really uninformed on this illegal alien invasion and these so-called refugees that the Obama regime is ramping up plans to bring more of into the country, most of whom end up on some sort of public assistance, at least initially for several years. If you know people who are unconcerned about that, unaware of that, maybe you ought to explain to them that it's their benefits that are going to be cut. And I think that people need to understand that this is going to affect their wallets in a very serious way. So if you know people who are thinking of voting for Hillary Clinton, let them in on that. Maybe share that. Speaking of Hillary Clinton, in the first hour, we talked about Dr. Ben Carson and the so-called scandal, the non-scandal, non-story of the various things that the media is trying to create out of whole cloth for obvious reasons. And the fact that when we opened the show, I played that little clip from this week, and it said, Ben Carson, here to answer the tough questions. And I have a piece over at terryobrien.com I will link to in the show notes called Tough Questions for Hillary Clinton. And I could share a few of these with you and get your take on whether or not. I'd love to have you go to this post and post your own questions for Hillary Clinton. So go to I'll put the link in the show notes. If you're in the chat room, I'm going to put the link in the chat room. Cruise over there and put your own tough question for Hillary Clinton. I'd love to hear what you have to say. But just a couple of the questions here. This to me is just absolutely stunning that more is not made of this. So here's a question I'd ask if I were moderating a Democrat debate. Wouldn't that be cool? Yeah, here it is. Here's the open. Oh, yeah. 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 Okay, Mrs. Clinton. On September 15th, 2015, you tweeted, quote, "To every survivor of sexual assault, you have the right to be heard and believed. We're with you," unquote. On the same day, at a speech at the University of Northern Iowa, you said, quote, "Don't let anyone silence your voice. You have the right to be heard, the right to be believed, and we are here with you as you go forward," unquote. Does that right extend to Juanita Broderick, who claims that your husband raped her in 1978? Is she lying when she says you personally went after her when she came forward in 1998? Here's another one. Why did you tell an audience at George Washington University in a campaign event on March 17, 2008, that you had to dodge sniper fire during a 1996 trip to Bosnia when that was not true? How about this one? Mrs. Clinton, in a 2003 radio interview, you stated, quote, "I am adamantly against illegal immigrants," unquote. Not just illegal immigration, but the immigrants themselves, apparently, from what you said. Yet, in a Democrat debate in October 2015, you stated that you believe states should extend health care benefits to illegal aliens. Can you explain this obvious inconsistency? It's pretty fun, isn't it? Now, how about this one? Mrs. Clinton, in 2009, you accepted Planned Parenthood's Margaret Sanger Award and expressed tremendous admiration for Ms. Sanger, saying that you were, quote, "in awe," unquote, of her. Margaret Sanger was an enthusiastic supporter of eugenics, a movement whose goal was to prevent what she called, quote, dysgenic breeding, unquote. That is, stopping African Americans and other dark people, as well as the, quote, feeble-minded, unquote, and disabled from reproducing. Does your admiration of Margaret Sanger extend to her promotion of eugenics? I think those are all excellent questions, substantive, and I think they're tough, but I think they're fair based on her comments in the past. What do you guys think? Now, speaking of Margaret Sanger, here's an interesting story about a hearing that's coming up. A story from yesterday from The Hill. Oh, this is interesting. Republicans and Democrats have stacked a new select committee on Planned Parenthood with their fiercest fighters on abortion rights, setting the stage for a major election year battle. Unlike every other committee in Congress, the overwhelming majority of lawmakers on the panel are women, with Representative Marsha Blackburn, Republican of Tennessee, serving as chairwoman, and Representative Jan Schakowsky, yikes, serving as the ranking Democrat. It makes sense to me since the topic is of particular interest to women, Schakowsky told The Hill. So this should be interesting. I don't know when this hearing is going to take place, but this is no doubt going to involve some of the discussion of the Planned Parenthood videos. And, you know, we have a budget process coming up. We have to have a budget, by December 11th? And Paul Ryan has not ruled out the issue of defunding Planned Parenthood, at least as part of those discussions. So we shall see what is going on. But this should be interesting. I mean, Jan Schakowsky is a complete left-wing hack and not the sharpest tool in the shed by any stretch of the imagination, but she is a loudmouth leftist screecher. So it should be interesting. I don't know that these hearings are going to be televised, so I don't know. We'll find out, but be interesting. So I will link to this story in the show notes. I've got another story in here. Speaking of Margaret Sanger, did you hear about this woman in England who is possibly going to be brought up on criminal charges for saying that Down syndrome people should be put down? Let me find that in the pile. Yeah, here it is, a story from the Washington Times by Jessica Chasmar. A BBC reality television star who wrote on Facebook that children born with Down syndrome should be, quote, put down, unquote, could face up to 6 months in jail under the UK's Malicious Communications Act. Ursula Presgrave, who appeared on BBC Three's, quote, The Call Center, unquote, and that's CNTRE, was taken to court after writing, quote, anyone born with Down syndrome should be put down. It's just cruel to let them lead a pointless life of a vegetable, unquote. Now, this woman sounds like she could get the Margaret Sanger Award. I wonder if she's in awe of Margaret Sanger. The message was removed by Facebook, but not before outraging social media users and spurring a flood of complaints to the South Wales police. Well, that's an interesting approach. You read something on Facebook that you find offensive and you call the police. Of course, there's a law against it in England, apparently. The 23-year-old was arrested after police found photos joking about the disabled on her phone, prosecutors said. So apparently in England, you can't make certain jokes. The Kidders, Tim Slagle, Dale Irwin, and I could be in a lot of trouble. I don't know if you guys ever watch our Google Hangouts. If you don't, I always put the video up at terryobrien.com after we do the show. But every Tuesday afternoon, my two comedian friends and I do a live Google Hangout. And I think there have been some jokes on that program that the people in England may not like. But anyway, this woman pleaded guilty and now faces a maximum sentence of 6 months in jail, or a 5,000 pound fine, which is about $7,500. So, freedom of speech, they don't have that Constitution thing. They don't have that First Amendment thing. in England. Of course, if Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton have their way, we won't have it here either, right? Because that's what getting rid of Citizens United is all about. You know, they keep talking about how they're going to have litmus tests for judges who must swear that they're going to vote to overrule the Citizens United case, which is an absolute outrage. The fact that they say that Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders say that should disqualify them from running for office for the presidency, in my opinion, because it shows they don't believe in separation of powers. They want to politicize the Supreme Court. But leaving that aside, if you believe that Citizens United is a bad decision, then you don't support the First Amendment. And apparently they don't. Anyway, this is an interesting case. I will put it in the show notes. This woman is very remorseful for saying these mean things about disabled people. Okay, we have got to talk about a couple of things. And actually, we've more Hillary. I mentioned we're going to talk about Hillary's bizarre comments on guns. Also, I've got a story here that I want to talk about that relates to Chicago gun violence. And so we'll get into that and the plan to close Gitmo as well. I'm going to take the break early just because I want to have some continuity. I don't want to split up these stories. So we'll take the break now. When we come back, we will get into the Chicago violence case. Very interesting story that really explains a lot. So we'll talk about that on the other side here on the Teri O'Brien Show.
She's America's original conservative warrior princess, daring to fearlessly and, more importantly, cheerfully commit common sense in the age of Obama. You're listening to the Teri O'Brien Show.
In recognizing a communist, physical appearance counts for nothing. If he openly declares himself to be a communist, we take his word for it. If a person consistently reads and advocates the views expressed in a communist publication, he may be a communist. If a person supports organizations which reflect communist teachings, or organizations labeled communist by the Department of Justice, she may be a communist. If a person defends the activities of communist nations while consistently attacking the domestic and foreign policy of the United States, she may be a communist. If a person does all these things over a period of time, he must be a communist. But there are other communists who don't show their real faces, who work more silently.
Previously on the Teri O'Brien Show.
Now, one thing that really scares me about this agenda is that I feel that the way they're going to get their foot in the door with this, and they're already starting this in some states, is by agitating about funding for education. This is how don't you think they see a good way to get the foot in the door that way, to say, like, how unfair is it that if you are in a suburb, you go to a good school, but if you're in an inner city, you don't, and it's all because the funding is based on local property taxes, and we have to end that.
Well, that's it, Teri. That's exactly it. And I have a whole chapter in the book where I discuss Obama's plans really to lever the control the federal government is beginning to get over the school curriculum. And this is another thing people don't know. There actually is now a kind of national curriculum. It hasn't yet been filled in, but 45 states have signed on to it because Obama has pressured them into it. And when it comes, I argue in the book, it's going to dumb down standards. It's going to be very leftist, but it's also going to give Obama a hook that he's going to use to try to force a redistribution of suburban education funding to city schools. And one of the things we saw in this campaign was the release of a video of an Obama speech. There were several videos released, and the one that probably got the least notice had Obama speaking in 2002, and in that speech he basically said that the whole American system of funding education based on property taxes is fundamentally unjust. And so that really ratifies in a way what I say in that chapter, where I give the details on how Obama is going to try to undercut local control of schools in everything from curriculum to funding. Another huge surprise in the second term that no one's really been told about.
Oh yeah, he released this moronic pamphlet the other day. He's running around the country waving this brochure that's a complete rehash of all the promises he made in 2008 that he never fulfilled about manufacturing jobs and cutting the debt and blah blah. But because he can't really tell us the stuff he really plans to do, which is the stuff that's in Spreading the Wealth, Stanley Kurtz's great new book, which everybody needs to get their hands on and read immediately. And I assume the book is doing well. I hope it's doing well. I think it's the kind of book that earlier, before you came on, we had Dinesh D'Souza on the show, and he was saying, we need to get everybody to watch 2016. I think everybody needs to read this book. Weren't you motivated to write this book because you want people to, you're kind of sounding the alarm before the election?
Oh, absolutely, Terry, particularly because the voters, the swing voters who hold this election in their hands are suburbanites, middle-class suburbanites. These are the voters that Obama is appealing to, and the amazing thing is that what I should argue in the book is that middle-class suburbanites are really the core target of Obama's redistributive schemes in the second term. So the very voters he is appealing to hand him the election, the middle class that he's claiming to support against Romney, and that's the whole theme of his campaign. They're the real targets of his redistributive scheme.
She's America's original conservative warrior princess, daring to fearlessly and, more importantly, cheerfully commit common sense in the age of Obama.
You're different from other girls. That's what you think. You're smarter. You're almost like a man.
You're listening to The Terry O'Brien Show.
Do you want to help The Terry O'Brien Show stay on the air? It's simple. Just start your Amazon.com shopping at TerryO'Brien.com by clicking on the Amazon Gold Box Editors Picks banner at the top of the page. That's TerryO'Brien.com. Then the show will get a small percentage of what you spend at no additional cost to you. It's a win-win. Terry, producer Thomas, and the K9 associate producers, thank you very much.
You found out what it's like to become a nationally recognized candidate for president and potentially a threat to somebody. A leaking of an essay you wrote in the 70s for an alternative weekly. Your campaign described it as satire. I'll be honest with you, Senator Sanders, it's uncomfortable to read. The only excerpt I'm going to put up is you wrote this in February of 72. It was sort of a fantasy of men and women. You said a woman enjoys intercourse with her man as she fantasizes being raped by three men simultaneously. Your campaign described it as satire. Can you explain this essay?
If a nation expects to be ignorant and free in a state of civilization, it expects what never was and never will be. Thomas Jefferson. You're listening to Informed America Radio.
Terry's book, The ABCs of Barack Obama, Understanding God's Greatest Gift to America, is available on Amazon.com, Smashwords.com, and the iBook store. Get yours today.
She's like a fist inside a velvet glove, softly shattering left-wing stupidity. The Terry O'Brien Show, proud member of the Red State Talk Radio Network.
Red State Talk Radio.
The Talk Monster.
Welcome back to this November 8th, 2015 edition of the Terry O'Brien Show. Thanks so much for being with me today. Oh my God, what is that I hear?
When a man's in trouble or in a good fight, you want all your friends around them, preferably armed.
You can
can say Americans are not more violent than other people.
No.
All those people killed in shootings in America?
Oh, shootings. Yes, but that doesn't mean Americans are more violent than other people. We're just better shots.
Believe in a world without guns.
That's very sweet, but a little naive.
I swear to uphold and protect the Constitution of these United States. So relax, gun nuts, I can't touch you.
Second Amendment update here on the Teri O'Brien Show. Big feature here, and thanks so much for tuning in. So I've got a couple Second Amendment stories that I want to share. So the Daily Signal reports on an ordinance that passed in Coos County, Oregon. And this is a rural county. It's approximately, it says here, 2 hours west of the Umpqua Community College. That's where there was a mass shooting. And what this ordinance is called is the Second Amendment Preservation Ordinance. More than 60% voted for its passage. And what it says, it directs the sheriff of the county to bypass state and federal gun laws if he judges them unconstitutional. It also prohibits enforcement of Oregon's recent law requiring background checks on private gun transfers, including transactions between friends. County employees who violate the measure could face a $2,000 fine. And this whole thing was spearheaded by a guy named Rob Taylor, who is a retired optician. And he got people to collect signatures. They had to get 2,000 signatures to get this on the ballot. And I think, the takeaway of this is citizen activism. What we always talk about here. We're not powerless, and we don't have to act powerless. The left wants us to be powerless. They don't believe that anybody has any legitimate right to have a say in what goes on in our country other than them. But I think that this is a great example. The Coos County Sheriff, Craig Zanny, who is now tasked with deciding which gun laws are in line with the Constitution, told the Oregonian last month that while he is a strong gun rights advocate, he had concerns about whether he had the authority to make those decisions. I'm not sure the courts would agree with that concept. I would just bet there would be some legal challenges. And then Hans von Spakowski, I can never say this guy's name. He's a senior legal fellow at the Heritage Foundation. He's written a lot about vote fraud. Hans von Spakowski said the supremacy clause in the Constitution leaves, quote, no question that federal law trumps state law, unquote, and any sheriff who violates a state law requirement could run into legal issues. Quote, on the other hand, while federal law can override state and local laws, the federal government cannot force local officials to enforce federal law. So this is an interesting example not only of citizen activism, but of the frustration of people in this country seeing their rights eroded by this monstrosity of an Obama regime, this lawless gangsta regime. And I think that this is a good example. Now, I mentioned Hillary and her comments about guns. So I'm going to play you a little clip. This is from October 30th at a campaign event. And just take a listen and see if you can figure what the hell this woman's saying.
There are some who say that this is an urban problem. Sometimes what they mean by that is it's a black problem. But it's not. It's not black, it's not urban. It's a deep, profound challenge to who we are.
Explain to me what this woman's talking about.
I really wish I could, Chris, but I don't think I can. A profound challenge to who we are. What the hell does that mean, Hillary? And of course, she's talking about this urban problem because, Bernie Sanders is from Vermont and he's consistently against gun control. And he's like this old white guy from this old white state. And this is a way for her to reach out to one of the Democrat Party's mascot groups. Of course, this may be another reason why she and the left fear Ben Carson so much, because he could probably erode some of the support that Democrats have in the black community. But that statement makes absolutely no sense, like a lot of the things that Mrs. Clinton says. Now, I mentioned this Chicago violence story, so this leads us right into this particular story. Let's take the break, and when we come back, I'm going to share with you, it's really a very sad story, but it says a lot about why we have violence in communities like Chicago and why, and what we really need to do something about it. And it has absolutely nothing to do, of course, with gun control. It has everything to do with criminal control. And of course, that brings us back to the whole issue of Barack Obama's embrace of violent felons, many of whom he is releasing into the population. So we'll get into that on the other side on the last big half hour of this November 8th, 2015 edition of the Teri O'Brien Show. I will be right back.
This is Cheryl Atkinson, and you're listening to The Teri O'Brien Show.
I'm a good person. I never bothered anybody. But I can't afford a nice house in a safe neighborhood. I live in a government high-rise. Gangbangers and drug dealers walk down our halls every day. My neighbors and I were scared. We called the police, but they can't keep us safe. Some of us are too afraid to even leave our apartments. But the housing authority told me if I bought a gun to protect myself, they throw me to the streets. If I'm not free because of my address today, what makes you think you'll be free tomorrow? I marched behind Martin Luther King at Selma. I know my rights. Now I have my gun. I am the National Rifle Association of America, and I'm freedom's safest place.
Where do you want to go to lunch?
I'm having a stroke.
Did you hear what I said?
I'm having a stroke.
Why aren't you answering me?
I'm having a stroke.
What's up with your face?
I'm having a stroke.
That's not normal. Is something wrong?
I'm having a stroke.
Are you having an allergic reaction?
I'm having a stroke.
When someone is having a stroke, they may not be able to say it with words, but their body language will tell you loud and clear.
I'm having a stroke.
You just need to know the sudden signs. Look for FAST, F-A-S-T, F, face drooping, A, arm weakness, or S, speech difficulty, then T, time. Time to call 911 immediately, because the sooner they get to the hospital, the sooner they'll get treatment. And that can make a remarkable difference in their recovery. Know the sudden signs. Face, arm, speech, time. Spot a stroke fast. Visit strokeassociation.org. Brought to you by the American Stroke Association and the Ad Council.
So, I'm a dog, and I'm kind of new to this family, but I've noticed a trend. My humans do this thing where they go around and get all my toys and hide them in this basket, but it's always the same basket, and it's always the same place, and then they act so surprised when I find them, but I'm like, hello, that's where you put it last time. Humans are the worst at hide and go seek.
A person is the best thing to happen to a shelter pet. Be that person. Adopt. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the ShelterPetProject.org.
All right, listen up, maggots, because I have something to say that you might want to hear. It's for every man 18 through 25 years old. Now, you want to live in my United States of America? Then you have got to register with Selective Service. It's a privilege, and it's the law. The fact is, you must register before you can qualify for student loans, most federal jobs, or job training. Now, you say you want to be a U.S. citizen? Well, get with the program. You've got to be registered to qualify. Now, Charlie tells me that we need to go online at sss.gov or fill out a selective service registration form at any post office. You did that already? Outstanding! You've earned my respect. Hoorah!
Register with Selective Service online at sss.gov or at the post office.
It's the law.
So I'm a cat, and I just moved in with this new human, and she's got this little toy she's always playing with, all day long. Tap, 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 bloop, bloop. She can't put it down. There it is. Oh, and get this. She even talks to it. Last week she asked it for Chinese, and guess what? Egg rolls showed up. Like magic. Humans have cool toys.
A person is the best thing to happen to a shelter pet. Be that person. Adopt. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the ShelterPetProject.org.
At highway speeds, the average text takes your eyes off the road for about 5 seconds. That's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop texts. StopWrecks.org. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
You're listening to Informed America Radio.
Ms. O'Brien.
Brian.
She's about
as hard right and at least, if not more, articulate than Limbaugh.
Well, she's popular.
There's something about this bitch that's really spectacular.
Yeah, for a popular girl, she's pretty popular.
She's about being sensible.
Well, she can make them talk about themselves, the way it says girls should do in those teenage columns.
Know-it-all, bitch.
Basically, I'm in love with her. Enough! Blah!
Welcome back to this November 8th, 2015 edition of the Teri O'Brien Show. Thanks so much for joining me today. And remember, the show never ends at terryobrien.com. So please visit the site during the week and please comment, please retweet, post our posts on Facebook, all that stuff. It all really helps us out, as does your starting your Amazon shopping at terryobrien.com. And of course, I have to give a shout out to those of you who have helped us keep the lights on by subscribing to the show, as in making a monthly gift. You know, earlier this week, I was feeling really low energy, kind of like Jeb Bush. And I decided to stop by Starbucks and get a big iced coffee with 3 shots of espresso to wake myself up, which it did. But it cost me over $5. And that's just 1 cup of coffee. So for the price of less than the price of a big Starbucks coffee, $5, if everybody who listened to this show or downloaded it would make a $5 monthly gift, we could be sure that a year from now, when it is election day, we will be here. So thanks to those of you who help us out that way. It really makes a huge difference. And we wouldn't be here but for our angels who have done that. And also, let me give a little shout out and a thanks to those of you who gone to Amazon and purchased a copy of the ABCs of Barack Obama, Understanding God's Greatest Gift to America. You know, for 99 cents, you get a resource that has tons of links explaining. And many of you probably already know maybe, all these things about Barack Obama, but a lot of your friends don't. And when you try to tell them, they probably think you're nuts, or they look at you like you're nuts. But of course, you know you're not. So thanks to those who've done that. Okay, so now this story that I keep telling you about that says everything we need to know about gun violence in the city of Chicago. This is a Fox News story. And this story is from today. No, actually, it's from Friday. 9-year-old Tyshawn Lee was walking on Chicago's South Side when he was lured into an alley and killed. But his father, whose alleged gang ties are believed to have played a role in the boy's murder, won't talk, according to disgusted police who on Friday pleaded for the community to help identify the killer. Authorities also called on the child's father, Pierre Stokes, to cooperate with them in solving the murder Monday that they described as absolutely awful. So I note that this child's name is Tyshawn Lee. The father is Pierre Stokes. I'm going to assume that Mr. Stokes is not married to the mother of his child. Quote, let me be clear that Mr. Stokes is a parent who lost his son, unquote, Anthony Guillemey, chief spokesman of the Chicago Police Department, told Fox News. But he apparently knows who did this. He potentially knows the background of the feud he was involved in, unquote. As of Friday morning, according to police, Stokes was not cooperating. He emphatically communicated to us that he had nothing to tell. Basically, what you have here is two warring gangs and a 9-year-old child who was walking to a relative's home at 4:30 in the afternoon on Monday, murdered. And this child's own father won't cooperate with the police trying to solve the murder of his own child, because he's living up to the code, right? So we can only hope that somebody in the community will come forward. There is a $35,000 reward that's being offered for any information leading up to this. And that goofball priest, the radical priest, the Michael Flager character, he has set up a GoFundMe account to provide more reward money. And I think his theory is that if these people come forward, they might have to move out of town. He wants to help them do that. So, but I think that this story, when you hear about gun violence and you hear about gun control, Rahm Emanuel and the police chief in Chicago are big gun grabbers, as you well know. But taking away and making guns illegal in Chicago doesn't prevent something like this. They already have very strict gun control laws. But when you have parents like this Mr. Stokes who are more interested in living up to his gang code than solving the murder of his own child, then I think we can understand a lot about why the city of Chicago is the murder capital of the country, or one of. And of course, the liberal policies that led to all the social pathology, the illegitimacy, and the drug dealing are the causes. And so for people like Barack Obama and even Rand Paul to talk about how drug crimes are nonviolent, that's an absurdity. And I think everybody knows that's an absurdity, or should know. And if they don't, I think they're very confused at this point. So I thought I'd share that story with you because this morning I was with a group of people, acquaintances, and some of them are sort of do-gooder types. And the topic of violence in the city of Chicago came up. And I didn't actually talk to them about this story because I knew it would just completely fall on deaf ears, because they're sort of liberal, touchy-feely, emotionally driven types who want to talk about how there's so much poverty and everyone's underprivileged, and, but that has really nothing to do with why this is happening. Okay, guys, one more break, and then we're going to talk about the Obama regime's plans to close Gitmo. Really interesting story from Stars and Stripes. I'll be right back.
Be sure to follow us on Twitter. The address is @TerryO'Brien. TerryObrien. That's OBRIEN, spelled just like Terry's cousin, Conan. Thanks for your encouragement and support.
America's wounded warriors are coming home. After serving on foreign shores, these brave men and women are returning to their families and communities. Many have wounds you can see, and many have wounds you can't see, like post-traumatic stress disorder. Now that these warriors are back home, they are ready to enter the civilian workforce. To help, Wounded Warrior Project has developed the Warriors to Work program, a career counseling service that helps warriors translate their military experience to the civilian workplace. These extraordinary men and women bring proven world-class job skills and a unique perspective on teamwork to the job. And to ensure the right warrior finds the right job, Wounded Warrior Project works with employers to find just the right match. When you hire a wounded warrior, you hire an intelligent, talented, and committed new employee. Contact Wounded Warrior Project at findwwp.org. Welcome home the brave.
Sassy! Sassy!
This week's episode, Rattlesnake at the Pond.
Oh, Johnny, skipping rocks at the pond sure is fun. Hey, look, a moving stick. That ain't a stick. That's a rattlesnake. Sassy, we're in danger. Good idea, Sassy. Go get Mr. Gunderson. You will in a second, but first you'd like to tell us something we may not know about animal shelters in the United States? It's getting close, Sassy. Approximately 8 million pets enter shelters each year? The majority of which are in shelters because of owner-related issues that the animals have no control over? Sassy the rattlesnake! Save us, Sassy! What, Sassy? You wish you were videotaping this? Sassy!
Sassy is brought to you by the Ad Council and the ShelterPetProject.org. Remember, adopt.
It seems these days I'm in a haze and I can't concentrate on things, can't eat or sleep, feel incomplete and kinda scared and creepy. I look over my shoulder lots and shudder when I watch TV. I bite my nails and cuticles and watch my words very carefully. Flag at White House. I bite my lip a lot and fidget with the buttons on my blouse. Why? Because there's a communist living in the White House. Why aren't people shocked or something? Why aren't people up in arms? Does anyone read history or see red flags or hear alarms? The streets are filled with deaf and dumb as I squeak like a mouse. There's a communist living in the White House. My husband really misses me. My parents think I've gone crazy. Only Glenn Beck understands me. And of course Sean Hannity and Huckabee. But you know, besides those three and the sweet people who drink the tea, there is no one else who can see the communists living in the White House.
Broadcasting from a secured bunker in an undisclosed location in flyover country, outside the East Coast bubble and far from left coast insanity. You're listening to America's original warrior princess, Teri O'Brien. Learn more at TeriO'Brien.com.
A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U.
Here's what insightful and gifted writer Ginny DeAngelis of American Thinker and Breitbart fame says about Teri O'Brien's book, The ABCs of Barack Obama, Understanding God's Greatest Gift to America. In the book, The ABCs of Barack Obama, Understanding God's Greatest Gift to America, Teri O'Brien illustrates her brilliance. This lady uses sarcasm like a sword and cuts through the absurdity of America being forced to endure the A to Z disaster who, when he's not on vacation, lives in the White House. The well-researched information doesn't miss one iota of what's gone on for the past 6+ years. Teri weaves hard-hitting facts together with snarkiness and humor. You'll find yourself laughing. Then, as you're giggling, you'll begin to realize that what seemed comical is actually pathetic. Only from Teri could you get a statement like this. Election day, unemployment was 7.9%, which sounded bad to some people, but that didn't matter. It was no match for the awesome power of Barack Obama's radiant, loving energy and his amazing ability to care so much about people, especially the downtrodden, that they could literally feel his long arms warmly hugging them as they watched Judge Judy every afternoon. Read The ABCs of Barack Obama, Understanding God's Greatest Gift to America. Trust me, learning the hard truth will be very entertaining. Another reviewer writes, This book was great fun to read and was especially valuable for the links to news reports on each of the topics covered. The fun part stops when you realize what a cumulative disaster Obama's term in office has been. Much of it documented in this book. What say you? Get your copy of the ABCs of Barack Obama, Understanding God's Greatest Gift to America on Amazon.com today for the amazing price of only 99 cents. And let us know what you think by writing to abcs@terryobrien.com or posting your review on Amazon. Thank you for your encouragement and support.
Now I know my ABCs. Aren't you very proud of me?
Everyone who wants to do good to the human race always ends in universal bullying. Aldous Huxley. You're listening to Informed America Radio.
Teri's book, The ABCs of Barack Obama, Understanding God's Greatest Gift to America, is available on Amazon.com, Smashwords.com, and the iBook store. Get yours today.
She's like a fist inside a velvet glove, softly shattering left-wing stupidity. The Teri O'Brien Show, proud member of the Red State Talk Radio Network.
Red State Talk Radio.
The Talk Monster.
Thanks so much for being here on this November 8th, 2015 edition of the Teri O'Brien Show. Or if you're not listening live, if you're listening live, if it is 5 to 7 p.m. Sunday, then please cruise on over to terryobrien.com, TERIOBRIEN, just like my cousin Conan, and join the live and lively chat room. We are there during the program. And we would love to see you there as well. Okay, so Stars and Stripes reporting, and this is published yesterday, Pentagon plan to close Guantanamo expected in coming week. The Pentagon's plan outlining the long-stalled effort to close the Guantanamo Bay Detention Center expected in the coming week includes details suggesting that the Centennial Correctional Facility in Colorado is one suitable site to send detainees whom officials believe should never be released. The plan represents a last gasp effort by the Obama administration to convince staunch opponents in Congress that dangerous detainees who can't be transferred safely to other countries should be housed in a U.S.-based prison. According to administration officials, the plan makes no recommendations on which of 7 U.S. sites is preferred and provides no rankings, but it lists the prison sites in Colorado, South Carolina, and Kansas that a Pentagon assessment team reviewed in recent months and mentions advantages and disadvantages for the facilities. Those elements can include the facilities' locations, cost for renovation and construction. I'm not sure why that is necessary. What, do they have to put in a bunch of foot baths or something? The ability to house troops and hold military commission hearings and health care facilities. So now any decision on this would require the approval of Congress, right? And so we do know that in Colorado, we have the Supermax prison in Florence. And that is a facility that has already been dubbed the Alcatraz of the Rockies, that already holds Ted Kaczynski, he's the Unabomber, and Zacharias Moussaoui, one of the 9/11 conspirators. And so we know Colorado has already taken some dangerous people. The Pentagon plan also lays out the broader effort to reduce the detainee population at Gitmo through transfers to other countries. Now, the problem with that is none of these other countries want them. The center now holds 112 detainees, and 53 are eligible for transfer. The rest are either facing trial by military commission or the government has determined they're too dangerous to release and are not facing charges. So In order to approve a transfer, Defense Secretary Ash Carter must conclude that the detainees will not return to terrorism or the battlefield upon release, and there is a host country willing to take them and guarantee they will secure them. Oh, yeah. That's worked out really well in the past, hasn't it? We've seen these detainees go back into the battle. In addition, how is he going to do this? We've already seen when we talk about these Syrian refugees that they want to bring into the country, we've talked about this many times. The FBI director has admitted that it's not possible to vet these people. So how exactly is Ash Carter going to do this? Meanwhile, members of Congress are saying that they're not going to permit this, especially Cory Gardner, the Republican from Colorado, saying, I don't want any of these guys in Colorado. He says the pressure this would put on our judicial system in Colorado is real. The challenges that could be brought in through the legal system we're not prepared for. I think that's another question on our federal judiciary in Denver. This is a rural area of Colorado. Would they be transferred to downtown Denver to the federal courthouse for a hearing? He asks. Now, here's the best part. Here's the kicker of the whole story. Even as the White House pitches the latest plan to skeptical lawmakers, officials have not ruled out the possibility that Obama will try to close the prison and move remaining prisoners to the U.S. without congressional approval. Oh, you think? Quote, I would not take anything off the table in terms of the president doing everything that he can to achieve this critically important national security objective, unquote. White House spokesman Josh Earnest said this week when asked whether Obama would act unilaterally, quote, and this is a pretty transparent case of the U.S. Congress putting narrow political interests ahead of national security. Seriously, the Obama regime is saying that other people are putting politics ahead of national security. I think they're projecting again. The threat echoes Obama's moves on immigration, gun control, both cases where he urged Congress to pass legislation, then used his executive authority when the bills failed. Yeah, absolutely. McCain and others have said that an executive order to shutter Gitmo would face fierce opposition, including efforts to reverse the decision through funding mechanisms. The prison at Guantanamo presents a particularly confrontational replay of that strategy. Obama would likely have to argue that the restrictions imposed by Congress are unconstitutional, although he has abided by them for years. The dispute could set off a late-term legal battle with Republicans in Congress over executive power, potentially in the height of a presidential campaign. So, does anybody seriously think he wouldn't do it? Come on now. He's got a pen and a phone, as we well know. So it'll be interesting to see if they do release those plans and what happens. Now, I mentioned the debate. And before I give you the one bit of information I want to share with you about that, I did want to mention we're talking about terrorism and national security. Also, a story here from Fox News that I'll put in the show notes. Fort Hood victims still waiting for injuries to be called combat-related despite Army pledge. So these Fort Hood victims are still not getting their just desserts. So we will, it's just been a little bit over, 2009, and this is 2015, so 6 years. Well, that's kind of a long time. I'll put this story in the show notes that we will post at terryobrien.com. Okay, so about the debate. Even if you don't have cable or satellite TV, you are going to be able to watch the debate because it's going to actually be streaming. Fox Business Channel debate will be streaming live. So you'll be able to watch that on your computer. I'll put the information about that also in the show notes. And I will, of course, be live tweeting and probably live chatting. Check terryobrien.com during the week so you can find out what we're going to be doing as far as debate stuff. And I guess, the time has come, kids. Yeah, when tears are falling all across the country and the planet. And that is when this program comes to an end. But don't forget, the show never ends at terryobrien.com. Please go there every day. I would consider it a tremendous favor. And don't forget, also here on Informed America Radio, we have on Wednesday evenings the Machete of Truth program. It's Wednesday, 9 p.m. Eastern. Please remember, and Caden Calger, America's Teenage Conservative, his program Mondays and Thursdays at 9 p.m. Eastern here. So please come back. Thanks for all your encouragement and support. And I'll be chatting with you during the debate on Tuesday and tweeting, of course. But until then, go to TeriO'Brien.com. And remember, stay tough because only the strong can stay free.